I designed a concrete factory for my Bedrock Edition survival world using some mechanics that I've not seen before, and when I put it to the test, it didn't work. So I went back to the drawing board and came up with the Concrete Factory version 2. Yes, I know, it's a great original name, but that's beside the point. Before we get started with the tutorial today, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new, and leave me a comment with some ideas of farms or other contraptions you'd love to see me tackle in a video. And if I love the suggestion, maybe your idea will get used next. But without any further delay, let's learn how to build this amazing concrete factory. In order to start building the concrete factory, you do want to find the bottom right corner of a chunk. So that would be top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And this is really easy for me because my entire stage here is chunk aligned. I built it that way on purpose. Chunks are 16 by 16 squares, so you can easily find out by doing some math. If you don't want to use math, you can use a really simple resource called chunkbase.com or an in-game resource called the Markers Pack by Foxy No-Tail. It is available on his website. It's also available in the marketplace. There are definitely some great tools that will help you out. So once I found the corner of the chunk, I'm going to count over by 1, 2, and go up by 1, and then I'm going to place a block here and count up 4, and on the 5th block, this is the very corner of our obsidian platform. The rest of this can get broken, and then starting this direction going into the chunk, I'm going to make sure that I have a 7 by 7 square. It should look exactly like this. In the same corner that I started, I'm going to go back down 1 below and place a block right here, then 1 block right here, and then 1 block right here, and then I can break these 2 blocks so that I'm starting in the corner, but down 1 from the original border. Then I'm just going to fill in the entire space. All of this has to be obsidian except for a couple of blocks. With this being the original corner right here, I'm going to go over and find the middle piece of obsidian in the platform we just built, and I'm going to knock it out. And then temporarily, I'm going to place a couple of pieces of wool right here with 1 chest right here. It doesn't really matter which direction you face it. It can be forward or it can be sideways. Just kind of depends on where you want to put your storage. But then I'm going to break these wool blocks and place 1 hopper here and 1 hopper here, both facing toward the chest. Then going up from the hopper, I'm going to skip 1 block and then I'm going to go to this block right here and punch that one out. That should be the very center of the platform. Then below the center hole, I'm going to build up 2 blocks with 1 sticky piston on top and then 1 piece of ancient debris that is flush with the rest of the obsidian platform. This has to be ancient debris because it is blast resistant just like obsidian, but this can be moved while this cannot be moved with a piston. Technically, you could build this entire platform out of ancient debris, but that's kind of expensive. I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe put that toward a netherite beacon instead. But for now, that should be fine, and we're ready to move on to the next part of this build. When all is said and done with this farm, this piece of ancient debris is going to actually sit right here because this piston is going to be extended by default. But the only problem with that is once in a while, you're going to get some concrete that drops right there, and it's never going to make its way into storage, and it could potentially just sit there and despawn. Or if you're using this back to back with multiple stacks of concrete, it could just potentially blow it up with the next round of TNT, which either way, we're not going to get that in storage. So here's my solution for that problem. I'm going to take 1 piece of wool, which I like to use for my infrastructure blocks, and I'm going to place it right here on the opposite side from where the hoppers are, and then I'm going to bust out these 2 pieces of wool and place 1 redstone torch right here to extend that by default, get rid of that temporary block, and then I'm going to place 1, 2, and 3 more blocks right here with a redstone dust, then a calibrated skulk sensor facing this direction with the purple stripe on the opposite side with a redstone block right here. A redstone block will carry a full redstone signal strength of 15 to calibrate this skulk sensor, so now if I jump up and down, it's not going to do anything, but this will react to TNT explosions. So anytime a piece of TNT explodes, this skulk sensor is going to hear that, send a redstone signal to here to depower this torch, and retract this piece of ancient debris so that if any pieces of concrete happen to land here, they'll just get flushed on over to storage. The amount of time that this would stay down is very short because it will just pulse very quickly. So the solution for that is to build a 3x2 platform right here with a comparator facing this direction, and then another comparator right here, and then 2 comparators right here and here, and then connect these up with redstone dust, and that's the entire thing. So if I put a piece of TNT right here and light it up, it's probably going to blow up that hopper, which that's fine. But you can at least see that the calibrated skulk sensor reacted, the pulse extender stayed lit, and that took a little bit for that to come back up. And hey, look, my hopper didn't get destroyed. That's perfect. The only problem with this particular solution is cows. Well, not just cows. Dying cows. That's a bad example because that wool blocked. It blocked the signal. Let's try it over here. Dying cows. If we kill a cow, it reacts. Why is it explosions and mob deaths? I have no idea. But that's just what Mojang chose to do with signal strength 15. And it's not just cows. It's any mob that dies within reach of the calibrated skulk sensor. It's going to set that off, which most of the time is not going to be that big of a deal. But if a piece of TNT happens to land down here, and then maybe a zombie gets lit on fire by the sun, and then happens to die and push this down and retract the TNT further, it could break the whole thing. The safeguard for that is just going to be to put some wool around the calibrated skulk sensor, and then just make sure to box it in. It should look something like that when you're done. There'll probably be another wall right here, but I am going to leave this open for the purpose of being able to see the circuit while we're working on it. But again, the entire thing needs to be walled in, and you need to make sure that you don't put any wool in between the skulk sensor and where the TNT is going to blow up, so make sure to leave that open, and you should be fine. And again, just to prove the point, we're going to light that up, and the skulk sensor reacts, the piston goes down, all the stuff gets flushed in, and then that goes back up. Starting with the same corner where we began this farm, we're going to build up 2 more, and on the 3rd block, we're going to build another 7x7 square. It should look exactly like this. Starting with the exact same corner, I'm going to go over 1 and 2 and place a piece of redstone dust right there. And then out of the side of this redstone dust, you can see the hitbox right there. I'm going to place 1 piston facing in toward the farm, and then I'm going to point my cursor directly at the wood part of the piston and place 1 observer facing that direction so that the redstone dot is right here and the face is right here. Then I'm going to place 1 piece of purple wool right here. And now anytime a piece of concrete passes in front of this observer, it's going to trigger that piston to pulse very quickly. And then I'm going to repeat this same thing 2 more times, starting in this corner and starting in this corner, but we're going to leave this side completely alone. So with this corner, 1, 2, redstone dot, piston right there, observer right there, wool block right here, and then starting on this corner, 1, 2, redstone dot, piston right there, observer right there, and then purple wool right here. Now I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to put 1 more observer right here, facing the same direction, with 1 more purple wool block right here. And this observer is going to feed the primary counter that's going to know how many blocks of concrete have passed through the system in order to keep track of when to press them down and when to launch the TNT. All of that we have still yet to build. One very important thing that you cannot forget, because this is the fail-safe that will keep your concrete farm from breaking, when looking across from these existing pistons, you need to make sure that there is a piece of obsidian right here, catty-cornered from this one, and straight on from this one. And we'll do the same thing back here. This wool block actually needs to get broken and replaced with obsidian, and then we'll go over here and do the same thing. A block of obsidian right there, and a block of obsidian right there. This part of the farm that we just built I call the loading dock, and anytime a piece of concrete enters into the loading dock, it's going to form a 3x3 ring, and I need a way to press it down toward where the TNT is going to land. And in order to do that, I'm going to use some ancient debris because it is fully blast resistant, and I'm going to create that 3x3 ring that will mimic exactly where the concrete is going to go, just 1 block further down. Then I'm going to place a block right here, and then a block right here, break that block, and then I'm going to place a downward facing sticky piston right here on top of this ancient debris. And when you're building this in survival, it might actually be easier to leave this out until you've put the pistons in, but because I'm in creative mode, it's not too hard. I can fly. You might not be able to if you're in survival. At least you shouldn't be able to, because you're not in creative mode. You shouldn't be cheating. Don't cheat. And after you've been reprimanded for cheating, you should have something that looks like this. I'm going to place 1 temporary block right here, and then go directly underneath and place a downward facing dispenser right here, and then break this temporary block and put redstone dust all the way around. None of this redstone dust will interact with this dispenser, and that is absolutely the way we want it, because I want the piston pusher to be completely independent from the TNT. We don't want TNT to launch every single time that this piston pusher goes. This should accomplish that goal. And just to demonstrate for you what this does, I'm going to put a temporary button right here and press it. The entire piston pusher will go down all at once, which we're going to use this wool as concrete. For example, if there's concrete down here, the piston pusher is going to push it down one layer to make room for the next layer. Then, once there is enough concrete in there to warrant pushing through some TNT, this will activate, and that dispenser will push some TNT down the middle to land on this block, and it will blow up all the concrete, which Bedrock Edition now has 100% drops, so all of our concrete will get flushed into this hopper right here. Which reminds me that I'm a bird brain. Once again, I didn't put any water in there. In the corners opposite from the hopper, place one water source right there, and then one water source right there. That's all you need. It's perfect. You know, after making several mistakes in this tutorial so far, I shouldn't be tooting my own horn. So moving on from all the horn tooting to this observer right here, the double observer with the obsidian behind it, we're going to put another row of obsidian right here with one redstone dust right here behind this obsidian block. And like I said earlier, this is going to feed the primary counter. So anytime concrete passes here, it's going to pulse a signal out the back of this obsidian. Then from here, to keep everything organized, I'm going to choose a different color of wool and place one right here, one right here, and one right here, so I've got a backwards L shape. Then take one repeater and place it into that piece of wool right there, and this is very, 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 very important. If there's one thing that you do not miss from this entire tutorial, it is redstone repeater timings. If they're not timed correct, the whole thing's going to break. It's not going to work. This repeater needs to be set to 2 ticks of delay, so 1 notch back from the default state. Not 3, not 4, not 1, but 2. On the other side of the wool, I'm going to place 2 upward-facing droppers. They need to be droppers, not dispensers. The droppers have the smiley face, and the dispensers have the surprised face. Make sure you have the right one. These are droppers. Place one temporary block right here with a crafter directly next to it, break that block, and then put one hopper feeding into the crafter. This is the very beginnings of our counter mechanism. When this crafter is done counting, we need a place for the items it's counting to flush back into the system. So put a repeater facing into that bottom dropper with one activator rail placed on top, and then one minecart with a hopper placed directly under that. And then it's not a bad idea to block your minecart in just in case it gets bumped. You don't want that flying off of there, otherwise the counter's going to break and the whole thing's not going to work. From here, I'm going to place another piece of wool right here and one more piece of wool right here with another crafter maybe facing the opposite direction so we can keep these straight, and then a comparator that is going to read this crafter, and then a comparator that's going to read this crafter, with this comparator being set to subtract mode. Then I'm going to open up this crafter right here that has the hopper feeding into it, and I'm just going to tick this last slot so that we can only fit 8 items in here, but it's still going to output a redstone signal strength of 9. And as you can see, this redstone has turned on to show there is a signal strength coming out of this, but I want that to shut off until this crafter matches the same signal as this crafter. I need to enable all of these slots, and now you can see that this comparator has gone off. Before I can demonstrate how this works, I actually need to lock this hopper minecart, and the only way to do that is to actually power the activator rail that's under it. This cannot be a regular powered rail, it can't be a regular rail, can't be any other type of rail except for an activator rail. So if I put a torch on this block right here, it is going to power that activator rail. You can see that it's on, now it's off, now it's on again. This is not actually doing anything to the minecart. The torch and the minecart are not interacting. But if we were to break this rail or to put a regular rail underneath it, this does absolutely nothing. It is the activator rail that is locking this hopper minecart. If I put an object inside of the crafter, it's not going to go anywhere. If this torch loses power, or in this instance is broken, the item leaves the crafter and gets flushed into the bottom dropper over here. I don't want that to deactivate until this reaches a full signal strength of 9, which would mean 8 objects plus the 1 slot that is locked in the crafter. As you can see, there are 7 items in there, so this is not currently powered. If I put one more item in, now it's powered, and we'll want to send a signal around to depower this to flush all of that out as rapidly as possible, which is why we used a hopper minecart. And in order to accomplish that goal, I'm going to put 1 block right here, 2 blocks right here, one block right here. So we've got an L shape, one repeater right here. Then I'll put a block right here on the other side of this repeater and break that temporary block with 1 and 2 pieces of redstone dust. And you saw that flicker really quick. That's because the crafter should have flushed all of the items, but it didn't. That's fine. That's how I planned it. In order to fix that problem, we just need a block right here with a piece of redstone right here feeding into this comparator. And as long as this has power, it's going to temporarily disable the comparing crafter, allowing all items to flush out. And once this signal is released, this will start comparing again. So let me pull all of these items out really quick, and then we'll drop them in again one by one. And now this time, all of the items flush out. The system is reset and ready to start counting again. But now everything is stuck in this bottom dropper, and I've got no way to get it up to this top dropper to feed back into the crafter. That is a super simple solution. We are just going to build a standard comparator clock. And to start that, I'm going to go out of this dropper right here and place down one comparator. Then I'm going to put one repeater right here, one block right here, 3 blocks right here, and 3 blocks right here. Then I'm going to feed some redstone into the side of that comparator, and it's just going to flicker, flicker, flicker over and over, but nothing is happening. All of these items are still staying in the dropper. It's just a clock saying, hey, there's stuff in there. And instead of redstone here, which feeds back into that comparator, I'm going to put a repeater, which feeds this block right here, which is next to this dropper. And now all of these items are going to feed back into the top. All 8 are there. The bottom is empty. The entire counter mechanism is completely reset and ready to go for the next layer of concrete. So next, I'm going to take a block right here with a repeater facing that direction, and I'm going to set that to 4 ticks, which moves this marker all the way to the back of the repeater. And then I'm going to go up so that I'm level with these pistons, run redstone dust all the way to here, and then put one more repeater and leave it alone. Just leave it set to 1 tick so that there are 5 total ticks of delay between here and the activation of these pistons. If I simulate 8 pieces of concrete going into the system, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on the 8th, we should see the pistons react, and that would push down the concrete for the first layer to be complete. I hope all of that makes sense so far. If not, thank goodness for the pause button. Go back, rewind, pause it when you need to. Also, maybe ask me some questions in the comments. I'd be happy to answer those. The next part of this is super simple. You're just going to do all of this one more time over here. And I'm going to start by placing a block right here on top of this block that's connected to the comparator clock that controls the reset mechanism on this dropper to push all the items to the top of this one. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm actually going to take 2 droppers and put them right here and here. So this circuit will also reset this dropper anytime there are items in the bottom here. So if I place a temporary block right here and then a crafter on top and then break that and then a hopper into the side and then a hopper down into the bottom dropper, an activator rail on top, a minecart with hopper on top of that. I'll go ahead and block that in and block that in and then place a comparator right here, 2 blocks here, 1 crafter right here, a comparator set to subtract mode, 1 block here, temporary block here, another block here with a repeater set to 1 tick of delay, break that temporary block, 1 block here, temporary block there, 2 blocks here, break that block, and then a redstone torch right there. And that should be everything set up exactly the same. And now here's how we're going to link these together. You ready for it? 1 piece of redstone dust. Now these 2 counters are linked, but this counter will only go off when this counter has gone through 8 items. But first, I need to set the crafters so that they reset at the right number, and I need to double check what that is over here on my test example. 1 slot on this one and 5 slots on this one. So I'll go ahead and press 1 slot here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 there. And then I can preload 4 concrete into the top dropper, and this one is armed and ready to go as well. There's already 1 piece of concrete in the crafter right here. So let's go ahead and do some basic counting. We'll pretend this is concrete passing the observer. So now that should be 2, and then now this should be 3, and then this should be 4. It is. and then this should be 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then 8, and you can see that all went off. So one thing I want to point out really quick as well, if you're testing this out at this point in the video, this is not finished yet. There are some locking mechanisms that we need to put into place because this has happened. I only triggered this 8 times, but because the pistons pushed down, it actually triggered this to push one more piece in here before I was ready for it to. Again, that's why this repeater timing is vital, and we'll have some locking mechanisms in here shortly to fix that problem. But the point is, you should now see one item in this crafter. This is the crafter to trigger the pistons, and then this is the crafter to trigger the TNT dispenser. So again, just to give you an example, if I push this through until that piston reacts again, we should now see there are 2 items in this crafter representing 2 layers of concrete. Now there are 3 pieces of concrete in there. This should be reset to 0, but it has 1 in there. Again, we'll fix that momentarily. Then this is the last one. That represents 4 layers of concrete, and the 4th one is pushed through. This has not reset yet because we need to do the same thing over here. Put a block next to this comparator, drop some redstone dust next to it. Oh yeah, and redstone dust here and here. Now it works. The next thing that we need to do is get this circuit right here to interact with that dispenser anytime the concrete reaches level 4. And in order to do that, I'm going to place 1 block right here with a repeater set on top of it. We'll leave that set to 1 tick of delay. Then I'm going to move forward 2 blocks, and then I'm going to go up 1. I can delete this temporary block. Then I'm going to go up 1 again, up 1 again, and up 1 again. And then I'm going to bring it over to where this block is right on top of the dispenser right here. And then I can run redstone all the way up. The other thing that I want to do is to make sure that these pistons stay down until that TNT dispenses and has time to explode to break all of the concrete and nothing else. In order to accomplish that goal, I'm going to come straight over from this block right here and meet up with the green line, which is controlled by the first timer circuit. And I'm just going to run redstone dust here and here, but then I'm going to put a repeater set to 1 tick of delay here. And the reason I want to do that is so that this line does not bleed back into this circuit right here. We don't want the TNT going off too early. It can really mess some things up. We got to make sure that this line stays isolated. Then the other thing to consider with this as well is that this is only going to pulse these pistons to extend the ancient debris. I need it to push the ancient debris and leave it there for a set amount of time each time, and we're going to accomplish that with pulse extenders. So I'm going to set 1 right here, and out of this redstone dust right here, I'm going to put 1 comparator, and then into this green block right here, I'm going to put another comparator and connect them both up with redstone dust. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to make it a little bit of a longer pulse extender. So I'm going to go over here to this second redstone dust and head this direction with 2 comparators, and then place 1 block right here, 1 redstone dust, and then 2 comparators right here, and that should complete this part of the design as well. And honestly, we are almost done. We talked earlier about how this crafter right here was receiving an extra item anytime the system reset from pushing 1 layer of concrete down. We need to fix that now. And the way that we're going to do that is to go over here, and I'm going to put a temporary block underneath this piece of redstone dust right here, right next to this pulse extender. And then I'll put another block right here. I can break that temporary block and then just bring this all the way over until it meets up with this repeater right here. This is where we got to worry a little bit about redstone timings and not interacting with other parts of the circuit as well. So I'm going to put a piece of redstone dust right here, and then 1 piece of redstone dust right here. And then to avoid these 2 lines linking up, I'm going to put a repeater right here and leave it set to 1 tick of delay. And then I'll put 1 more piece of redstone dust right here, and then 1 more repeater facing into the side of this repeater, but I'm going to set it to 4 ticks of delay. And this is how this entire locking mechanism works. Whenever this crafter reaches maximum capacity, which is 8 items counting 8 pieces of concrete, it's going to send a signal around, which is going to send a signal up here to pulse these pistons. This block becomes powered during that process, and it will power this redstone here, which will send a signal into this 4-tick delay repeater to lock this 2-tick delay repeater, which is just enough time to allow these pistons to come back up before this will be allowed to send a signal through to here again, avoiding this problem right here where we've got an extra piece of concrete in the machine. So now if I push this back into the top dropper and we count it up to 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, we should see that has flushed and there's nothing in the crafter and all 8 pieces of concrete for our timer are in the dropper. The other scenario we need to worry about is when this crafter back here reaches a count of 4 to fire the TNT and lock these repeaters in place. That is taken care of by this connection right here, because not only will this block power this locking repeater setup, all of this back here, including this pulse extender, will send a signal all the way over here to keep this repeater locked until these pistons retract, and it will still avoid pushing an extra piece of the timer concrete into this timer crafter. This is probably the most important part of this entire design, because if you don't have this locking circuit and these timers get off even just a little bit, it will mess up the cube of concrete down here, which will lower your efficiency, and even more so, it could potentially leave some gaps in the concrete and blow up some of this redstone in here. So again, you need to make sure that you followed all of these directions so that all of these repeaters are set to the correct delay. I spent hours tinkering with this to make sure that it worked. This is it. This is the design. So now the only thing that's left to put into this design is the piston pusher circuit that will push all of the concrete into the loading dock. And that part of the circuit is going to start next to this piece of obsidian right here with a single stair. And then I'm going to place a block right here, one more block right here. This has to be obsidian. It's too close to the TNT to be otherwise. That's not part of it. You can break that. Then we can break this block right here, one more piece of obsidian right here, and then one piece of obsidian right here. And last but not least, one piece of obsidian right next to this stair right here. I'm going to grab a water bucket and I'm going to drop it right here and waterlog that stair so that the water flows into that little gap that we created, but it is not allowed to flow anywhere else. So now anytime a piece of concrete powder drops right here, it's instantly going to get hardened because that water is technically touching it. And once it's hardened, we want to send it on into the loading dock. In order to accomplish that goal, I'm going to put a piston right here facing inward toward the loading dock. Then I'm going to put a temporary block right here with an observer facing toward the piston next to that temporary block. I can break that block right there. And then my choice of block for this section of the circuit is yellow wool. So I'll put one here, one here, one here, and one here, with redstone dust right here, redstone dust right here, and redstone dust right here. But then on this block, I'm going to put a repeater set to 4 ticks of delay. This has to be 4 ticks in order for the piston to wait long enough for the concrete to drop without breaking the concrete powder itself. So if I put a piece of concrete powder right on this observer, it's going to drop, instantly harden, and then get pushed over. And then the first counter has gone off. If I do that again, it'll do the same thing. And again, it'll do the same thing. I'm up to 3 counters and 3 pieces of hardened concrete, so everything is working exactly as it should. The only problem with this circuit, which I do have a solution for, is that it will back up and lock up if you put too much concrete powder in here when this piston pushes down. I want to make sure that this piston will push that direction anytime this retracts. So in order to accomplish that goal, it's super simple. All I'm going to do is face an observer into this piston right here to read the state change. And then I'll place a piece of yellow wool right here, here, and here with a repeater coming out of the observer set to 4 ticks of delay. And then redstone here and redstone here to link all of that up. So now anytime these pistons retract, this is going to send a pulse around to push this piston forward, just in case there are any pieces of concrete stuck here that need to move on into the system. And that is the entire circuitry for the concrete factory. Fully complete. The only thing left to do is to get a place to stand. And in my original design, I just had everybody stand right here, which caused some problems by being too close in proximity to the TNT. When it exploded, it would cause player damage. It would knock me off the platform. I'm going to avoid that with this design by going 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks above that observer right there. And then I'm going to come over 2 blocks from this redstone circuit right here above this dispenser where all the TNT is going to go. And then I'm going to go up 1, 2, and 3 more. So this block is right in my face. And now now, all I gotta do is stand here with my right click button or my auto clicker or the rubber band on your Xbox controller, whatever it is, and hold that down and drop all the concrete into place. All right, there goes the TNT, and there goes all the concrete. That reacted perfectly. All of the concrete is flushed into the hopper, and it's all loading into the final storage. This is the perfect concrete factory. For every 2 TNT, you get a full stack of concrete. I'd say that's a pretty good trade. But hey, I hope this build makes your life a whole lot easier when building out of concrete. That's the goal, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't finish without saying thank you so much for watching. Anytime somebody clicks on one of my videos, it is greatly appreciated. I hope you'll come back and check out the content we've got coming up next. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.